Good afternoon, friends. Welcome back to Stories with Pastor Macy. I hope you're doing well this week. I want to share a story with you that I grew up with. It is called Mrs. Rosey-Posey and the Treasure Hunt. And this was a series of books, the Mrs. Rosey-Posey books. And they say reading level grade 2 on them. So they were books that I grew up hearing read to me and then learned to read as I started to learn to read. And on the inside you can see there's a little swan sticker, which means I could read it by myself, and I got a sticker for that. So I'm excited to share with you a couple of the books from this series. And this series always starts out with a Bible verse. So the verse for this story is Psalms 19, verses 9 and 10. God's laws are pure, eternal, and just. They are more desirable than gold. They are sweeter than honey, dripping from the honeycomb. And these stories take place in a place called Poppyville. And there's a picture of Mrs. Rosey-Posey's house in Poppyville. Here we go. When the sky is clear and the air is warm, young boys dream of great adventure. And that is when the boys in Poppyville stood head straight for Mrs. Rosey-Posey's house. On such a day, Ross, Jacob, and Adam dressed like pirates and climbed into Mrs. Rosey-Posey's treehouse. Jacob kept lookout while Ross and Adam raised the flag. "Captain, Captain," Jacob cried, "ship approaching, starboard!" Ross looked to the right. That's the starboard side, you know. He saw Mrs. Rosey-Posey pulling a little red wagon. She stopped in front of the treehouse and called out, "Ahoy, matey!" "Who goes there?" called Ross. "'Tis I, your servant, Mrs. Rosey-Posey, with your daily ration of books and peaches." "Very good," said Captain Ross. "Send them aboard." Mrs. Rosey-Posey put the books and peaches in the bucket and pulled on the rope. Jacob grabbed the bucket and dumped the cargo. "Thank ye kindly," said Ross. "Ye are most kindly welcome, Captain," said Mrs. Rosey-Posey. "If ye have further need of me, I shall be in the galley." "She means the kitchen," said Ross. "I know," said Jacob. Adam rubbed his peach on his shirt. It helped get rid of the fuzz. Then he opened his book and something fell out. "Hey," Adam said suddenly, "look what I found in this book." "What is it?" Jacob said. The three boys looked closely at the piece of paper. "It's a treasure map," Ross said. "Wow," said Adam. "Are you sure?" said Jacob. "Yes, look," Ross said. "Here is the treehouse. The arrow points to the porch swing." "Then let's go," said Jacob. "Let's find the treasure." The three pirates scrambled down the ladder and ran to the porch swing. "Now where?" Jacob asked. Ross turned the map sideways. "It looks like we go to the pond." The boys ran to the pond. "Now the arrows point to the house," said Jacob. The boys raced up the steps again to the back door. "Now where?" asked Adam. "I'm not sure," Ross said. He held the map closely to have a better look. "Hey, somebody wrote something on the back," Adam shouted. Ross turned the map over and read, "A treasure sweet like no other, open it up, adventures discover." "What does that mean?" said Adam. "A treasure sweet," Jacob said. "That must mean the treasure is something to eat." Just then, Mrs. Rosey-Posey opened the back door. "Why, if it isn't my favorite pirates, welcome! What brings ye to my galley?" "We found a map," said Ross. "A treasure map," Jacob added. "It led us here, but we don't know where to go next," Adam told her. "Indeed," said Mrs. Rosey-Posey. "May I have a look?" Mrs. Rosey-Posey turned the map this way and that. "Aye," she said, "this is a treasure map indeed. I believe it is the other half of this one." She pulled another map out of her pocket and handed it to the boy. "Look," Jacob cried, "X marks the spot. But where do we start?" "I believe you boys start in the living room," said Mrs. Rosey-Posey. They ran to the living room. "Nowhere, nowhere," Adam cried. "Follow me," Ross shouted. The boys followed Ross through the living room into the dining room. "Okay," Ross said, looking at the map. "I think we go upstairs now." "Come on, matey," Jacob called to Adam. "The treasure can't be far off." Adam hurried to catch up. He found Ross and Jacob upstairs in the bedroom. They were going into a closet. "Wait for me," Adam said. The three of them pushed on the back of the closet wall. It opened into an empty closet in the next bedroom. They laughed and ran out of the bedroom into the hallway. "Look for a small door," Ross called over his shoulder. There in the hallway, next to a small open door, stood Mrs. Rosey-Posey. "Mercy me," she explained. "Does the treasure map say you should go down my laundry chute?" "I think so. That's the only small door in your hallway," said Ross. "That's a laundry chute?" said Adam. "I've never seen a laundry chute like that before." "Aye, matey, my laundry chute is a one-of-a-kind," said Mrs. Rosey-Posey. "You best follow the map. Here, use these." She handed each of the pirates a laundry sack. Captain Ross was the first one to slide down the long, dark laundry chute. "Whee!" he cried as he landed in a pile of towels in the basement. "Come on," he called up to his friends. "That was really fun." Jacob went next, then Adam. They laughed all the way down. "We must be getting close," Ross said, studying the map with a flashlight. "Look for a door that leads outside." "Here it is," cried Jacob. The pirates climbed out into the sunshine. "Now we go 20 paces to the west," Ross said. They looked at the weather vane on the top of Mrs. Rosey-Posey's house. The big W pointed straight toward the sandbox. Off they went, counting their paces. 1, 2, 3. They stopped in front of a big X in the sand. "Come on," they shouted, and they began to dig with all their might. "That's it," Ross cried. He and Jacob lifted an old treasure chest up from the sand. Quickly they opened it. The boys looked at the treasure. They looked at each other. They looked at the treasure again. "What are they?" Jacob asked. "What should we do with them?" Adam said. Ross reached into the chest and took out the 3 treasures. They looked like books, but they were covered with whipped cream. "A treasure sweet," said Ross. "Let's eat them." They all laughed and began licking the whipped cream off of their books. Adam got whipped cream all over his face. Jacob licked around the edges. Ross licked the middle of his book. Some letters began to appear. B-I-B-L. "Look," Ross shouted. "It's a Bible in a plastic bag." "Really?" said Jacob. He kept licking to see if his treasure was a Bible too. "Let's go show Mrs. Rosey-Posey," Adam said. He had whipped cream everywhere. "Mercy me," cried Mrs. Rosey-Posey. "You've discovered the greatest treasure of all time, the Bible." She got that twinkle, sparkle, zing look in her eyes, and she said, "Did you know that the Bible is like a treasure map for our lives? If we follow the clues God left in His Word and stay on His path, we will find a treasure much better than gold." "I never had my own Bible before," said Adam. "Thank you." "You're most kindly welcome, matey," said Mrs. Rosey-Posey. "These Bibles are for each one of you to keep, always." "Why did you put whipped cream on them?" asked Jacob. Thousands of years ago, there were teachers called rabbis. They taught God's word to young boys. First, they would write a Bible verse on a clay tablet. Then, they poured honey over it. The boys would lick off the honey and learn the Bible verse. I like whipped cream better than honey, said Adam. I thought you might, said Mrs. Rosey-Posey. Could you teach us some Bible verses? Asked Ross. I was hoping you would ask. I have just the ones for today, said Mrs. Rosey-Posey. She helped each of the boys find Psalm 19 and read verse 9 to them. God's laws are pure, eternal, just. The pirates repeated, God's laws are pure, eternal, just. Did I just memorize a whole verse? Asked Adam. Indeed you did, said Mrs. Rosey-Posey. Jacob read the next verse. They are more desirable than gold. He stopped. You mean the Bible is better than gold? Indeed, explained Mrs. Rosey-Posey. God's word is going to last forever. Ross read the rest of the verse. They are sweeter than honey dripping from a honeycomb. Hey, that's just like a sweet treasure. But what does the rest of the clue mean? Asked Jacob. He read the back of the map again. A treasure sweet like no other, open it up, adventure discover. Mrs. Rosey-Posey took Ross's Bible and held it like a very special treasure. The Bible is like no other book, she said. When you open it up, you will see that it is full of adventure. It is? Said Adam. Yes, the Bible is full of stories about giants and kings and warriors. Really? Said Adam. Mrs. Rosey-Posey smiled and leaned forward. It even has a true story about a donkey that talked. Wow, said Jacob. One of my favorites, said Mrs. Rosey-Posey, is a story about Paul. You see, first he was shipwrecked on an island, and then he was bitten by a poisonous snake. Then what happened? Ross asked. Well, matey, let's find out, Mrs. Rosey-Posey said. She opened up to the book of Acts, chapter 27. Will you read about the talking donkey next? Jacob asked. And then the story about the giant, Adam said. Certainly, said Mrs. Rosey-Posey with a smile. If ye mateys like these stories, just wait till you hear some of the stories that Jesus told his friends. First, the shipwreck story, said Ross. Then the donkey, said Adam. Mrs. Rosey-Posey laughed and began to read. The three pirates stretched out, and of course they all lifted their eye patches. It helped them to hear much better, you know. And the last picture of our book is our three pirate friends looking at some stories in their Bible. So there's the story of David and the giant Goliath in 1 Samuel chapter 17. And here you have the story of Balaam and his talking donkey. And that's in Numbers chapter 22, verses 21 to 41. And here we have Paul and the shipwreck, which is in Acts chapter 27, verse 1 to 28, verse 6. And last we have Jesus telling a story, and that's in Luke chapter 10, verses 25 to 37. I hope that each of you has a Bible at home. I like the ones that have pictures and maps with them. If you don't have a Bible at home, let us know right in the comments. And the Tabernacle Seventh-day Adventist Church would love to gift you a Bible wherever you are so that you can learn about all the exciting stories in God's Word. Thank you so much for joining me today as we read the first of our Mrs. Rosey-Posey stories, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.